What is melody? Is it the tune? What is melody? Is it the moon? Is it just the moon? Ask Richard now.
What is melody? Hit me, big boy.
Okay, what is melody? Melody's a lot of things, and it's the one thing I firmly believe you can't teach. Can't teach somebody how to write a great melody at all. I've been composing since I was 12. I'll be 48 this year. And I can only say that when a good melody comes, it's not from me, it's from God. I don't know how the melodies even happen. But you can analyze them. You know, people say, well, look at Beethoven, Ode to Joy, you know. That one, that's a great melody. Now, is it great because it moves around in a scalar thing? It doesn't leap a lot. But there are other melodies that leap like crazy and do all kind of things. Everybody remembers Bally High or whatever, you know. It's like,
That's a nice leap.
so that's a leaping melody. So in a way, you can't lump all melodies in one box and say, well, in order for it to be a great melody, it has to work by scales or do great leaps. But one thing's for sure, it has to be lyrical. That's why the Italian opera, the great compositions of Verdi and Puccini were so incredibly popular, because they were so lyrical and they were soaring, and you remembered them once you heard them, you know. Those great arias became famous. Or in pop music, like a great Beatles tune, like Michelle, or something like Eleanor Rigby. One prerequisite for a great melody is it has to be singable in a way. Like to become something that finds its way into the hearts of like a massive number of people all over the world. It has to be something that people can feel like they can own it too. I think that's one thing that makes it so beautiful. Other melodies that we tend to write sometimes in jazz that are more angular are fun and different, like melodies that are more sprightly. You know, like historically you have precedents like, say, in Vivaldi, The Four Seasons, where the first fiddle player wigs out and everybody loves it. And or the Bach double violin concerto or something like that. It's great, and it's moving rapidly, and it's also lyrical in its own way, but it's a different kind of melody. It's more about the motion and the rhythmic energy of the melody. So there again, you can contradict yourself all day. What's a good melody?
How about, what's a bad melody?
Okay.
Try that one.
A bad melody would be something that's not lyrical at all. And this, again, this is kind of subjective. Because then you...
That's okay, it's your show.
Yeah. I mean, for me, 12-tone music and stuff. There were the great ones, like Schoenberg and Berg and Webern. And then there was a bunch of guys that came after them, where if you heard one of their pieces, you would go, what melody? It was a tone row, right? So they picked 12 tones, and it was very mathematic and very logical and maybe well crafted, but maybe not so moving. So there I stumbled on something by accident. I think a great melody moves people too. I think that's a component.
Okay. So now I'm going to give you some other things to think about. You play these two instruments here that are lovely, charming instruments. And you are noted for your phrasing. But because they're two different instruments, can you give me an example, and I think this would be really interesting for my listeners, of the same melody but played on both instruments and showing how you phrase them differently because of the nature of the two instruments.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I mean, we could even do a thing where maybe Janek comps for you, could play whatever tune you want, but just show how you would phrase it differently.
Okay.
It's a good idea, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's nice.
And I can't do it with anybody else, apart from maybe Gary Husband, if I do it, if I'm playing the same melody on two different instruments.
No. Let's say we do Alone Together.
Okay, Alone Together.
Yeah, you know Alone Together? Okay. So if we were here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the A section.
Okay, that's fine.
That's good. So you
now-
want me to try on the
now
other
I want
one?
you to
Okay.
whip out that big bad boy,
Okay.
and then now let's hear a different approach to it.
Yeah. Now,
Because of
for
this.
me, because I'm the same guy, and I when I play a melody like that, I tend to think similarly. You'll hear maybe subtle differences. I don't know. Maybe it'll sound more than subtle differences to you. But to me, it's interesting. But it will sound quite different in its own way. Let's see
Okay.
how it works. Great. Let me just sit like I like to do.
Okay.
Play this bad
Yeah.
boy.
There it is.
Okay. One,
Okay.
two, same tempo. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
another way to do it.
Right. So that's okay. Now, here's the thing. Let's say somebody said to you, okay, I want to do Alone Together, but I want to do it as a really fast Latin tune, for instance. Then you'd have to
Yeah.
phrase the melody differently.
Totally different.
Okay, so just give us a quick example of that.
Like anyway,
Yeah,
we're going to the
yeah. It's a whole
we can
different
go.
thing.
Yeah, it changes. Any melody will change colors with different tempos.
Right.
I mean, any good melody has enough stuff in it, like enough complexity and enough depth, to where guys have done many different treatments of great melodies. I liken it to, like, sometimes I do a lot of reharmonizations too of old hymns. Sometimes those old melodies are so sturdy, you can hang 8 million chord changes on them,
Indeed.
and they'll do quite well.
You mentioned the singing thing. A lot of people have talked about the fact that a melody must sing and also to make their instrument sing.
Yes.
Talk about some of the actual things that you do with this instrument, for instance, the double bass, to make it sing. Your use of vibrato, your use of sliding,
Yeah,
your
I
use
mean-
of getting different tones, playing different places with your right hand. You know, all those kinds of ways you make the instrument sing the way you want it to sing.
Yeah, at this point, I have my eyes closed most of the time when I play this. It's interesting, when I play my electric bass, a lot of times I'm sort of watching, because physically the notes don't feel so different from each other. Because it's a flat board that kind of just goes, and you just play. And you watch to know where you are. A lot of times when I'm playing this, I have my eyes closed. Because you measure and you learn how to do it by feeling. On both instruments, in order to make them sing, you have to phrase. I've always worked on trying to make my phrasing more expressive, like the great horn players I hear. Like, a lot of times bass players, to me, they don't have as many different articulations as they should. They play a lot of short notes, not enough singing things, and it takes a lot of listening, actually. To me, it's not so much a technical thing as having the sound inside of you and then finding whatever you need to do to get it out.
Exactly.
So that's, for me, it happened in a more organic way. Now when I teach, I'm forced to explain what I do. And it's a little wild sometimes, because if you say to somebody, okay, how do you explain the way a Delta blues person plays like a melody like Jesus is on the Main Line when they go... There's so many little things that go into like a few bars of that. When do you slide? When do you sort of like screw around with the major and the minor third, playing in between them pitch-wise, like the way they sing? The notion that there's a blues scale is a joke. It's a whole culture, and it's not just a little scale that you play. It's a very narrow way of looking at that. It's a whole idiom. It's when do you slide? I mean, some of it's feeling, some of it's, when I think of that, I think of a voice. Or a dobro or a guitar, the way those guys play.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and on electric bass, I find myself having to... See, with acoustic bass, you got no frets. So, unless you play fretless, which I do sometimes, but I tended to stay away from that after I heard Jaco, because I had so much respect for what he did that I wanted to find my own way.
Exactly.
Which I wound up finding with the sixth string. But... that gave me another challenge, you see, because with frets, to make it lyrical and sing and connect everything, you have to adapt. Like, say, you want to play In a Sentimental Mood.
I do want to play it. Oh, sorry.
And then now you don't have a, like this, with acoustic bass, I sometimes use the bow because I was trained in classical music, so that gives you a lot of sustain, right? Here, I have my strings quite a bit higher than a lot of younger players, because I like to have play in the string and I want to be able to vibrato. So it really helps me when I'm saying,
yeah,
you know, I'm not picking every note. So you're forced to find other ways. That's what I work with my students on this instrument, the electric bass. Is I don't pick every note. I don't play every note. I don't play them all long. I don't play them all short. I have to find ways to make it vocal. A singer doesn't use one articulation. They use millions. Horn players, that's where I learned how to play that stuff. Really listen to great horn players.
And you don't play each note at the same dynamic.
No. That's another thing that's really kind of hard to teach. Because that's from learning from listening to music. You know, Janek plays the same instrument as me, so he understands this. You know, to get this thing to sing, you have to be informed with a lot of other things besides just bass. Even if you break down, even in your foundational part of your playing, like, you know, just grooves and stuff, every note is not the same volume. That's how grooves happen. Just like some notes are ghosted, like, you know, you hear James Jamerson play something, he doesn't play everything the same volume with the same exact attack. Some notes are ghosted, some notes are played long, some notes are held, some notes are shortened. It's the combination of all these things, and if you can, the thing is, in all those things, you really learn those by feel after a while. You can't sit there and go, well, I'm going to play this note really short and this one a little, you know, you can't measure that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's an oral, A-U-R-A-L
Thank you.
thing.
It's a family show, as you say.
Radio Richard.